So quite simply, I'll click Create Cluster up here, and I can choose the data lake that I want to attach it to get all those shared services as I spin up these workloads on demand. So I'll choose my data lake cluster 3. And my credentials, so these are credentials that I pre-set up in Google Cloud Platform. This is what allows me to instantiate instances on GCP as well as get HDP deployed on GCP. So let's give this a name. We'll call it Demo 3. Choose my particular region here. I'm going to stick with US East 1. The platform I want to deploy, whether that's HDP 2.6, whether that's 3.0, or HDF as well. So let's choose a data science workload. Right out of the box, CloudBreak includes several blueprints. So if you're familiar with Embari blueprints, you'll be familiar with CloudBreak blueprints. And this essentially lets you define the components, services, and configuration of those components that are going to be deployed in your HDP cluster. So you can see we have 3 here, one for data science, an EDW workload, and ETL workloads as well, with the common components that would get deployed for those workloads. So let's go ahead and choose data science. We'll click next. I'm actually going to do the advanced UI now that I think about it. We have a basic and advanced UI. The basic UI is really good to get you up and running very quickly. The advanced UI is, if you're going to use the UI, is going to be what most enterprises would do to get all the customizations that they want set up as they provision workloads. So my image settings here, I'm going to use the base image settings that we ship. You can actually create your own custom images. So if you have your own corporate enterprise standards for images for some of the Linux distributions that we support, you can certainly build those images and deploy your corporate standard images, gold standards. I'm going to use the out-of-the-box images we have. Hardware and storage. So this is where I can make some adjustments to my host groups. We have a master node, as you can see at the far right. This is going to be my Embari server as well. And we have worker nodes and compute nodes host groups. And I can come in here and adjust any of the sizes for the root volumes, the number of instances that I'm going to deploy. For compute nodes here, let's say we add an instance here and deploy one instance. Next. And we've heard a lot about cloud storage today. That's integrated with CloudBreak and obviously HDP. To do some cloud storage here, I'm going to have to put in my service account. And let's put in my base storage location. And then we can attach this to the Hive warehouse using Google Cloud Storage. So cluster extensions, again, we give you very prescriptive guidance in CloudBreak on how to get these workloads up and running, but we understand, again, just like custom images, there's customizations that you're probably going to need to make. So we have this concept of recipes here. This allows you to run shell scripts, and you can determine at what point during the cluster installation that these scripts are going to run. Like, is it pre-Embari being installed? Is it post-Embari being installed? Is it actually a recipe that runs when you terminate the cluster and remove it, as you would ephemeral workloads when there's no longer a need for it? But again, these recipes allow you to run shell scripts. End-to-end example of that would be like if you needed to join your host to an Active Directory domain. So you do all the work for that up front, pre-Embari install, and then when you terminate the cluster, there's probably some Active Directory cleanup work that you need to do, and you could have a recipe run at that point. All right, let's go next and talk about external sources. And this is a new capability we launched in CloudBreak 2.7, is the notion of dynamic blueprints. So very likely, instead of the need to create one-off blueprints for several different configurations that you need, you can have a single blueprint and inject settings into that blueprint. So you can do things like one-time configurations. Common would be if you want to connect these to an LDAP directory and do things like single sign-on. I have an LDAP directory set up here, an Active Directory. You can configure this to connect to external databases. These are probably one-time configuration settings that you want to set up and just be able to easily select those. Next. Now, gateway configuration. Sid talked a little bit about Knox. We have the ability to provision with CloudBreak and wrap your clusters with an Apache Knox-powered secured gateway. This is great for limiting surface area of ports that are exposed to the public internet and really securing those services that you want to publish for your cluster. So we can do that right here, very prescriptive guidance, we can route that. Then we get to the network configuration. We can select existing networks and subnets we want to attach to. We need to make sure in this case, because we're attaching to a data lake services cluster, that whatever selected network and subnet you have defined can communicate with the shared services cluster as well. You can come in here and edit the security groups. You can create a new security group, edit your existing security groups. We intelligently know what services you want to deploy, so we're exposing the correct ports needed for that, like 9443.22, 9443 for cloud break communication to the cluster, and 8443 and port 22 for SSH as well. And some last security configurations I need to do. Give my Envari admin a password. And put in my SSH key so I can shell into the box of windows. Now we do support Kerberos as well. You can enable Kerberos. If you want to do that, there are some prerequisite checks that you need to kind of go through to make sure that that's set up for your environment correctly. If you're just doing some testing and getting up with CloudBreak really quick to see how easy it is to spin up workloads or try some workloads on your own, you can use a test KDC. We use an MIT KDC, but again, this is only suitable for a test environment, not suitable for production. You should bring your own KDC. And then very simply create cluster. You can see my new cluster being created here. Depending upon how many nodes you're deploying and whatnot, usually takes about 20 minutes here to get through a complete cluster deployment, instantiate all the VM instances, as well as do the Envari install and then add all the nodes to the cluster as well. Once done, your cluster is going to look similar to this one that I've already created and attached to my data lake. You can see here, here's the gateway configuration with all the endpoints for all the services that I published through Apache Knox. I can see all my external sources that are attached, as well as the cloud storage that I have attached to this particular cluster. One popular feature for our customers is auto scaling. So once I get on the cloud and I'm working with ephemeral workloads, I can actually resize this workload and add additional compute nodes. I can add additional worker nodes manually. But auto scaling is a great advanced feature here that we have that allows you to scale up and down based on different events that happen. So for example here, we have alerts, and that's the basic from which you're going to create policies that are going to happen here. And alerts can be time-based. They're based on cron expression, so at particular times during the day, if you want to grow the workload that you have to provision on the cloud, or you need to shrink it, let's say it's a batch job or something that runs at night, and you need to scale up to that. You can certainly do that based on time. You can also do that based on any Envari metrics as well. So based on what you're seeing going on in the cluster, if you need to grow or contract and whatnot, and take advantage of the elasticity in the cloud, you can certainly do that. And then from the auto-scaling policies perspective, again, you can add nodes, you can remove nodes, you can also set the number of nodes to a particular number of nodes that you want, and then you define which host group that this policy applies to. All right, great. So that's it for the demonstration. Just one thing.